What is the ultimate goal of a civilization? Is it to conquer, to explore, or is it simply to survive? But what happens when survival is achieved so completely that there is nothing left to strive for? What if the perfect sanctuary becomes the most beautiful prison? Tonight, we journey into the hypothetical history of a species that answered these questions. A civilization that built a monument to their own genius and a tomb for their ambition. This is the story of the Dyson Sphere Builders. Part 1. The Genesis. In the vast, silent theater of the cosmos, countless stories have played out and faded to black, their triumphs and tragedies unknown to us. Tonight, we unearth one such story. Not from dusty ruins on a long-dead world, but from the hypothetical history of a civilization that dared to tame a star. This is the story of the Dyson Sphere Builders. This is the story of the Lumen. The Lumen were a species born into a paradise under siege. Their world, a jewel of cerulean oceans and lush continents, was blessed with life. But their star, once a gentle parent, had grown erratic in its old age. Its magnetic field was weakening, its solar flares growing in intensity, stripping away the planet's atmosphere, scorching the land, and threatening to erase the Lumen's billion-year evolution. They were faced with a choice: flee into the cold, uncertain dark of interstellar space, or make a stand. They chose to stand. They chose to build. Part 2. The Great Work. Their solution was the grandest engineering project ever conceived, a megastructure that would not just protect them, but fully contain their star, capturing every joule of its energy. A Dyson Sphere. It was an act of audacious survival, a declaration that they would not be extinguished. The project would take millennia. It would require them to sacrifice their own moons, to deconstruct entire planets in their solar system, harvesting them for the raw materials needed for their salvation. Generations of Lumen lived and died, knowing only the great work. From their besieged world, they watched as the first scaffolding, a brilliant ring of light and industry, took shape around their Sunday. Fleets of automated builders, a testament to their ingenuity, worked tirelessly in the harsh glare of space. They spun asteroids into cables of impossible strength and forged planet-sized hexagonal panels. Their outer shells a perfect, light-absorbing black, their inner surfaces a shimmering, iridescent mother of pearl, ready to become the new sky. The day the first panel blotted out the sun was not a moment of celebration, but of profound, somber reverence. A shadow fell across their world, the first artificial night in its history. With each new panel, another piece of their natural sky vanished, replaced by the promise of a perfect, engineered heaven. The great work was not just a construction project. It was a long, slow farewell to the universe they had known. Part 3. The Gilded Age. After millennia, it was complete. The star was caged. The Lumen migrated from their dying homeworld to their new one. The inner surface of the Dyson Sphere, a world with a surface area billions of times greater than their original planet. They had achieved ultimate security. Their cities, now built on the inverted landscape, were masterpieces of grace and light. They controlled the weather, the seasons, and the very concept of day and night. It was the dawn of a golden age. Freed from the struggle for survival, Lumen culture blossomed. Their art became their new purpose. Having caged the ultimate source of light, they became obsessed with it. They created vast, holographic light sculptures that filled the sky. Their music was composed from the resonant frequencies of the sphere itself. They engineered artificial constellations, a new zodiac of their own making, to replace the one they had sacrificed. They built a perfect, predictable, and beautiful world. Part 4. The Whispers of the Void. But perfection can be a cage of its own. Millennia passed in this gilded world. The star was stable. The environment was perfect. There were no more challenges to overcome. The stories of their ancestors' struggle, of the violent sun and the great work, faded from memory into myth. The Lumen, born into a world without a true night sky, had never seen another star. They had no concept of the vast, chaotic, unpredictable universe that existed just beyond their perfect shell. A strange melancholy began to settle on their civilization, a cosmic agoraphobia in reverse. They had conquered their environment so completely that they had lost their reason to strive. Their birth rates declined. Their grand art projects became repetitive. Their curiosity about the outside vanished. They had achieved perfect safety, but at the cost of their ambition, their fire, their very soul. They had forgotten the inspiring, terrifying beauty of the unknown. Part 5. The Silent Monument. The fall of the Lumen was not an explosion, but a whisper, a slow, quiet fading over thousands of years, until eventually there was no one left. They did not die from war or famine or disaster. They simply stopped. Their perfect world became a perfect, silent monument, a tomb of their own making. Countless ages later, a new vessel arrives. A ship from a young, ambitious species called humanity. They breach the outer shell, expecting to find a star. Instead, they find a world. Silent cities, art that hums with forgotten energy, and the final records of the Lumen, a cautionary tale left for the next explorers to find. The human explorers find the final Lumen archives, a simple, holographic message left by the last of their kind. The message contains no warning, no regret, only a question posed to the newcomers, to us. A question that echoes in the silent, perfect world they built. We achieved perfect safety. Was it worth the price? The story of the Lumen serves as a profound and unsettling reminder that a species might not need an enemy to perish, that sometimes the greatest threat to intelligence is the absence of a challenge, and that perhaps the darkness and chaos of the unknown universe isn't a threat to be conquered, but a necessary ingredient for a life worth living. The Dyson Sphere remains, a silent testament to a civilization that solved the problem of survival, but lost the meaning of existence. It is a profound and unsettling reminder that the greatest threat to a species may not be the fire of a dying star, but the cold comfort of a gilded cage. And so, it leaves us with a question that echoes through the void. As we, humanity, begin our own reach for the stars, what are we truly searching for? A safe harbor? Or the infinite, chaotic, and beautiful unknown that truly makes us alive? If these are the questions that fuel your curiosity, and you believe the greatest stories are written in the stars, you've found your home. Subscribe to Out of Space and never stop looking up. Good evening, Wanderer. Tonight, we look not to distant galaxies, but to our nearest star, Alpha Centauri, a system long dreamed of, now within reach. Part 1. The Long Sleep. On board the starship Wanderer, a lone human slept. Kalen, a cartographer by trade, but a seeker of the unknown by heart. For decades, Kalen drifted in the cold embrace of cryo-sleep, the only passenger on a journey that measured not in miles, but in lifetimes. The silent void was their companion, the hum of the ship, a lullaby. Each passing year, a whispered promise of a new dawn. Kalen's dreams were filled with the maps of stars yet uncharted, and the silent question, what wonders would bloom in the light of an alien sun? A lifetime of waiting for a single moment of arrival. Part 2. The Crimson World. That moment came. The Wanderer stirred from its slumber, lights blinking to life, nudging Kalen awake. A slow, gentle awakening after a journey beyond human comprehension. Through the viewport it appeared, Proxima Centauri b, a world unlike any other. Shrouded in a soft, crimson glow, it presented a seamless tapestry of organic growth. No visible oceans, no jagged mountains, no open plains. Just a vast, unbroken canopy that pulsed with an internal, living light. A giant, red jewel in the velvet of space. The descent was calm, the landing soft. Kalen stepped out, the alien air cool and faintly sweet against the visor. Their boots sank into a floor of deep, yielding moss, ancient and soft. Towering around them, reaching for a sky visible only in glimpses, stood trees. But these were no ordinary trees. They were colossal, their bark a lattice of glowing patterns, their broad leaves shimmering with inner light. Part 3. The Forest That Watches. Kaylin began to explore. The forest was utterly silent. No chirping insects, no rustling leaves in a breeze that didn't exist. No animal calls, just the profound humming quiet of living flora. The vastness of it was overwhelming. But then, a feeling began to grow. Not of being alone, not of being watched by hidden eyes, but of being felt. A gentle, pervasive awareness. The lights on the giant trees began to shift. As Kaylin's heart quickened with awe, the lights pulsed in a rhythm mirroring their own. When Kaylin felt a pang of profound loneliness, a wave of melancholic blue would ripple through the canopy. Joy brought a bloom of golden light. Cautiously, Kaylin reached out a gloved hand, placing it on the rough, glowing bark of a tree. A shock of soft light spread from their touch, flowing like liquid through the entire structure. A connection. This wasn't just a forest. It was a single, living, planetary mind. The Sylvans, an intelligence beyond comprehension, speaking in light and feeling. Part 4. The Shared Dream. Exhausted by the sheer weight of this silent communication, Kaylin found a root-carved hollow at the base of a particularly ancient tree. They rested, helmets still on, allowing the calming energy of the Sylvans to flow around them. As the hum of the forest cradled Kaylin, sleep gently took hold. But these were no ordinary dreams. They were the dreams of a world. Kaylin experienced the slow, patient birth of Proxima Centauri b, felt the ancient starlight that gave it life. They saw the first tendrils of the Sylvans slowly, painstakingly spread across the nascent planet, connecting, growing, weaving themselves into a single vast consciousness, eons unfolded in moments. Galaxies wheeled in silent contemplation. Kaylin understood. They weren't a visitor on a planet. They were a momentary spark within a mind, an ancient, peaceful being that had silently contemplated the cosmos since its genesis. It was immense. It was lonely. And now, for a brief time, it had a companion. Part 5. The Farewell Song. Kaylin awoke, not with the lingering fatigue of a long journey, but with a profound sense of peace. The loneliness that had accompanied them across the stars had vanished, replaced by the quiet echo of an ancient shared presence. It was time to leave. As Kaylin turned towards the distant gleam of the Wanderer, the entire forest began its farewell. The crimson canopy erupted in a symphony of brilliant, shifting colors. Waves of sapphire, emerald, and gold pulsed through the colossal trees, a silent, breathtaking song of departure. Kaylin looked up, overwhelmed by the beauty, making a silent promise. The story of the Sylvans, the silent song of Alpha Centauri, would not be kept in whispers. it would be told, shared, a bridge built between the solitary heart of humanity and the vast, gentle mind of an alien world. And so, the wanderer departed, leaving behind a planet that now carried a new memory, the brief, precious connection with the human soul. Perhaps, sometimes, the greatest intelligence isn't found in words, but in the silent songs that echo across the stars. And now, traveler, sleep well.
Good evening, Seekers. Tonight, we journey to a place tucked away from the frantic pace of the world, where the pines reach high and the waters run deep. Juniper Lake, a community of quiet lives, where the only gossip is the rustle of leaves and the biggest news is the changing seasons. Among them was Ilara Vance, an artist who found solace not in people, but in the raw beauty of the wilderness. Her cabin, nestled by the water's edge, was her sanctuary, her easel a window to the whispering woods. But one autumn night, the quiet stillness of Juniper Lake was fractured. Ilara, drawing by her window, saw it. A light, not a plane, not a star, an impossibly silent, brilliant orb, pulsing with an inner white fire, hovering directly over the darkest expanse of the lake. Then, nothing. Silence. And a sudden, chilling jolt as she found herself standing by her open front door, a thermos of cold tea in her hand. Hours had simply vanished. A chasm in time. The night's memory was a broken mirror, reflecting only fragmented, unsettling images. The first glimmer of an enigma had descended upon Juniper Lake. Part 2. Shared whispers and growing fear. The weeks that followed were laced with an unsettling quiet. Ilara told no one of her missing hours, dismissing it as a waking dream. But the threads of strangeness began to weave themselves through the community. Old Man Hemlock, who swore by his routine, found his morning chores done by an unknown hand, with hours gone from his memory. Sarah, the baker, kept waking up to find intricate, geometric patterns inexplicably etched into the frost on her window pane. Whispers, hesitant and afraid, began to circulate. Tales of strange lights, fragmented dreams of being somewhere else, unidentifiable sounds in the dead of night. The local sheriff, a pragmatic man named Miller, dismissed them as lake fever or too much moonshine. He had seen it all, or so he thought. But for Ilara, a different kind of connection was forming. A subtle resonance. When she met others who had experienced the missing time, like the quiet fisherman Silas, there was an unspoken understanding, a knowing look, a shared tremor in the soul that went beyond words. Fear, once a solitary echo, began to resonate collectively, binding them in a silent, growing dread. Part 3. The Echo's Resonance. Ilara's art began to shift. Her sketches, once of serene landscapes, now filled with the unsettling, precise geometric patterns she felt were hidden in her missing memories. She found herself drawn to places around the lake where these patterns seemed to echo on moss-covered stones, in the frost of a spiderweb, etched into the bark of ancient trees. They were everywhere, unseen until now. The missing time events for Ilara and a small growing group of others became more frequent, more profound. Hours stretched into entire nights, fragmented dreams coalesced into shared visions. They saw glimpses of vast, sterile environments, bathed in soft, clinical light, faceless presences, a feeling not of malice, but of overwhelming, detached observation. It was during one such shared vision that Ilara first noticed it, a faint, almost imperceptible mark, a small, glowing geometric symbol, identical to the ones she had been sketching, etched under the skin of her forearm. Others, in their shared memory, revealed similar marks. A silent brand, the echo had found its resonance, binding them to a truth they couldn't articulate, a purpose they couldn't comprehend. Part 4. The Collective Truth. One crisp winter night, the veil between worlds thinned completely. It wasn't just Ilara and her small group. It was the entire community, a collective, missing night. From every cabin, every house, people gazed at the impossibly bright light over the lake. And then, for hours, consciousness simply ceased. But this time, when they returned, the emptiness was filled with echoes of a shared vision. A flood of cosmic data, pure light and information, imprinted directly onto their minds. They remembered being shown vast, complex star charts that scrolled through untold galaxies. They saw intricate biological schematics of life forms beyond imagination, not as lectures, but as direct, empathic understanding. They saw humanity, not as a solitary species, but as part of a larger, evolving tapestry. They weren't being abducted for experimentation, but for observation, for education, for a fleeting, overwhelming moment. They understood a truth about the universe, about humanity's place in it, that dwarfed all fear. The abductors were not malicious, but profound. The purpose was not harm, but preparation. Part 5. The Unseen Watchers. The sun rose over Juniper Lake the next morning, as it always did. The missing night was over. For most, life returned to its predictable rhythm, the memory of the night, a jumbled, unsettling dream. But for Ilara and the others, those touched deepest by the echo, everything had changed. They carried fragments of that cosmic knowledge, a quiet understanding that altered their perception of reality. The fear had receded, replaced by a profound, if unsettling, sense of connection. They were no longer simply residents of Juniper Lake. They were, in a way, pupils of the stars. They understood that the abductors weren't hostile invaders, but ancient, silent observers, guiding humanity's nascent consciousness in ways too subtle to comprehend. The abductions weren't an attack, but moments of profound, unsettling education. And now, when Ilara looked at the deep waters of Juniper Lake, or at the vast, star-filled sky, she no longer saw just beauty or mystery. She saw a canvas woven with purpose, humming with an unseen presence, a long echo of a secret purpose, still watching, still waiting. The truth was not just out there, it was within them, a quiet, growing hum.
Good evening, traveler. Come, let us leave the noise of your world behind. Tonight, we journey to a place far beyond the reach of any telescope, a planet known to the star shepherds as Mnemos. Mnemos does not orbit a sun in the way you might understand. It drifts through the quiet, dark spaces between galaxies, warmed by the internal light of its own heart. And on its surface, there is a garden, not of flowers or of trees, but of memories. Here, on the plains of shimmering, soft soil, live a people called the Weavers. They are tall, gentle beings, with skin the color of twilight and fingers, as long and delicate as starlight. They are the caretakers, for on Mnemos, every memory ever lived by every creature on the planet, from the smallest dew glider to the oldest weaver, does not fade. It crystallizes. It becomes a tangible thing, a shard of light you can hold in your hand. The Garden of Memories is the weaver's sacred trust. Billions upon billions of glowing crystals, each one a moment of life. There are the brilliant, fiery orange crystals of joy, the deep, tranquil blues of peaceful moments, and the soft, pearlescent whites of profound love. The weavers walk the garden paths, their feet making no sound, tending to the memories, feeling the shared history of their world humming in the very air they breathe. Our story begins with the oldest of the weavers, a gentle soul named Alara. Her own memory crystals, which she kept in a small pouch at her side, were countless and shone with a soft, steady light. One evening, as the great nebula on the horizon cast its purple glow across the garden, Alara felt a subtle shift, a cold spot in the warm hum of the garden. Her heart, a slow and steady drum, skipped a beat. She followed the feeling of emptiness to the very center of the garden, to the heart of their history. There, on a pedestal of pure obsidian, was meant to be the first light, the first memory, the very first moment the weaver species, young and new, had opened their collective eyes and witnessed the twin suns that once warmed their ancient homeworld, long before they began their great drift through the void. It was their origin, their beginning, and the pedestal was empty. The brilliant, foundational memory, the one that held the light of their dawn, was gone. A gasp, soft as falling dust, echoed among the other weavers as they gathered. A memory had never been lost. Faded, yes, but never taken. Alara knew there was only one place such a powerful memory could have been drawn to. Beyond the warmth of the garden lay the echoing wastes. This was the place where memories, over eons, finally faded. It was not a sad place, but a place of quiet release, where the energy of a memory would return to the planet. The ground was covered in gray, lightless dust, the remains of forgotten moments. But the weavers had legends, whispers of creatures born from the dust of memories that had faded in sorrow or fear. Creatures of emptiness that craved the light of whole memories. They called them the Whispers. Alara, taking only a single, small crystal of her own, a memory of pure courage, stepped out of the garden and into the cool silence of the wastes. The air here did not hum. It was utterly still. The only light came from the distant nebulae in the sky and the small, brave orange glow of the crystal in her hand. she walked for a long time, her gentle feet sinking into the gray dust. She saw the faint outlines of forgotten things, the ghost of a child's laughter, the fading echo of a sad farewell. It was a place of profound melancholy, and she felt a deep compassion for the moments that had been lost to time. Finally, she felt it again. That cold spot, that emptiness. It was coming from a dark cave, carved into a low hill of dust. Inside, she saw it. The Whisper. It was not a monster. It was a creature of shadow and dust, vaguely shaped like a weaver but with no features, no face. It was a hole in the world, and clutched in its center, a desperate attempt to feel warmth, was the brilliant, stolen memory of the first light. The Whisper was consuming its glow, feeding on that ancient joy. Alara did not feel anger. Looking at the creature of emptiness, she felt a profound pity. It was not evil, it was just empty, alone, a being made of forgetting. Slowly, she approached. The Whisper recoiled, clutching the stolen memory tighter. Alara stopped. She took out her own small orange crystal of courage, and then she did something unexpected. She held it out, an offering. The Whisper hesitated. Then, with a trembling, dusty hand, it reached out and touched her memory. Instead of taking it, Alara pushed the memory's feeling into the Whisper, the feeling of standing up to a great fear, the warmth of bravery. And then, she reached into her own mind and offered a new memory, fresh and pure, the feeling of compassion she felt for the lonely creature right at that very moment, a memory of not being alone. The Whisper shuddered. A soft, low hum, the first sound it had ever made, filled the cave. The blinding light of the first light crystal was too much for it now. It no longer needed that overwhelming joy, because it now had a small, warm light of its own. Its dusty fingers uncurled, releasing the first light. The ancient memory drifted gently from the Whisper and floated towards Alara, who accepted it with a grateful nod. The Whisper, no longer a void, but a being with a single, precious memory, curled up in the back of the cave, its new, soft orange glow a tiny star in the darkness. Alara returned to the Garden of Memories just as the nebulae began to brighten for the new day. She placed the first light back on its obsidian pedestal. Its glow seemed even warmer now, brighter, as if enriched by its journey. The hum of the garden returned to its full, peaceful chorus. The weavers learned a great lesson that day, that even the forgotten deserves compassion, that you cannot fight emptiness with anger, but only with a gift, a new memory, a new light, however small. And so, on Mnemos, in the Garden of Living History, the weavers continue their watch, their light now a little wiser, a little warmer. Perhaps there is a garden of memories within you, as well. Tend to it kindly, and now, traveler, sleep well. There are many kinds of silence in the universe. There is the peaceful quiet between the stars, a silence of immense distance and profound possibility. And then there is the other kind, the heavy, absolute silence of a graveyard. A silence that holds a final, unanswered question. What if there was a place where all the lost ships in the galaxy eventually came to rest? A dark corner of the void where every journey ends and no story is ever told. Tonight we travel to a place of cosmic dread, a rogue planet that collects ghosts. This is the story of the Iron Graveyard of Tartarus. Part 1. The Detour. In the vast, starless oceans between galaxies, there are wanderers, rogue planets cast out from their home systems, drifting in an eternal, freezing night. For humanity's deep space explorers, these were objects of curiosity, but nothing more. Until the long-range survey vessel Magellan, on the final leg of a routine 5-year mission, detected the impossible. It was a signal, not a call for help, not a greeting, a structured, repeating pulse of energy, too complex to be natural. It was a heartbeat in the void, emanating from a rogue planet designated Tartarus. Captain Eva Rostova, a veteran of the deep dark, was faced with a choice: follow protocol and log the anomaly for a future mission, or burn their remaining fuel on a detour that was years off course. For Eva, there was no choice. The silence of space is broken for a reason. You must listen. Part 2. The Arrival. Weeks later, the Magellan arrived. Tartarus was a colossal sphere of black ice and frozen methane, scarred by billions of years of cosmic impacts. It absorbed the light, a true sphere of darkness. But the signal wasn't coming from the planet. As the Magellan's powerful searchlights cut through the void, the ship's sensors screamed with impossible readings. They were not alone. The truth was revealed in a slow, horrifying pan of the ship's external cameras. Surrounding Tartarus, in a chaotic but stable orbit, was a fleet. A ghost fleet. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of derelict alien starships. Silent, dead, from colossal organic vessels that looked like bone, to crystalline shards that defied physics, to brutalist war machines scarred with unknown battles. It was not a place of arrival. It was a place of ending. The Iron Graveyard. Part 3. The Archives of the Dead. A mission of exploration had become a forensic investigation. The crew launched drones, then 2 explorers on an EVA to board a selection of the silent vessels. Each ship was a new mystery, a new ghost story written in an alien tongue. The first was a vessel of impossible size, its architecture Gothic and cathedral-like. Inside, they found the desiccated remains of a communal insectoid species. Their final logs, translated by the ship's AI, spoke of a pilgrimage, of following a signal they believed was a call from their god. The second ship was the opposite, small, sterile, and biomechanical. It pulsed with a faint residual energy. The crew was a crystalline silicon-based life form, seemingly merged with their own vessel. Their scientific logs were pristine. They had tracked the signal across galaxies, believing it to be the ultimate key to understanding dark energy. Their final entry was one of triumphant discovery, followed by an abrupt, inexplicable silence. The third was a warship, battered and scarred. The crew, a powerful reptilian race, had followed the signal, believing it was a challenge from a worthy foe, or the location of an ultimate weapon. Their final log was not one of reverence or discovery, but of rage and confusion. They had arrived for a battle and found only silence. Then, their own ship had simply died. 3 species, 3 motives: God, science, war. All drawn to this one dark place. All silenced. Part 4. The source of the signal. Back on the Magellan, the crew pieced together the terrifying puzzle. The signal was still pulsing, a steady, patient heartbeat at the center of the graveyard. It was a lure, a beacon. They triangulated its source to a single, colossal object at the very heart of the debris field. A ship far older, far larger, and far more alien than any of the others. Its design was non-Euclidean, a structure that seemed to fold in on itself, built from a material that reflected no light. Captain Rostova made the final dangerous call. They had to go inside. The interior of this ancient ship was not dead. It was a single vast chamber. And in its center, floating in a perfect sphere of contained energy, was the source of the signal. Not a machine, not a creature. It was a vast, crystalline intelligence. A lattice of light and geometry that hummed with unimaginable power. It was the lighthouse. Part 5. The Lighthouse Keeper's Purpose. As the explorers approached, the lighthouse spoke, not with sound, but directly into their minds, a flood of pure concept and ancient memory. It explained its purpose. It was an archive, a self-aware historian created by a species that had transcended physical form billions of years ago. Its purpose was to preserve the stories of civilizations that reached the peak of interstellar travel. The signal was a call tailored to the desires of any species that could detect it, a promise of God, knowledge, or conquest. When a civilization arrived, the lighthouse would offer them a choice. Continue their chaotic, often self-destructive path through the cosmos, a path that almost always ended in self-annihilation. Or retire. Enter a peaceful, collective immortality, their entire civilization's consciousness downloaded into the lighthouse's infinite matrix, their story preserved forever. Their ships, now empty, became silent monuments in the Iron Graveyard. It was not a trap. It was an offer of salvation, an exit. The crew of the Magellan returned to their ship, the lighthouse's final message echoing in their minds. It had seen humanity's potential, our art, our love, our endless, violent contradictions. And now, it was offering us the same choice. The signal, which had been a mystery, was now an invitation. Captain Rostova looked at her crew and then back at the silent, waiting graveyard. And the video ends on the most profound question any explorer could ever face. What do you do when you find the end of the road? And so, the lighthouse waits, a promise of eternal peace and an end to all struggle. It is not a monster, it is a choice, a final, terrifying question posed not by a creature, but by the universe itself. It leaves us to wonder, what is the greater risk? The chaotic, often violent struggle for existence among the stars? Or the perfect, eternal silence of a story that has already been written? If you believe the journey is worth the risk, that the unknown is more valuable than any safe harbor, then you have a place with us. Subscribe to Out of Space and never stop looking up.